Hey, I'm Richard Hall with Nerds Make Media. You're about to see one of our productions. Hit the subscribe button first and tell your friends about us.
Hello, I'm John Chancellor, substituting for Joseph C. Harsh, who was on assignment in Europe. We are in St. Petersburg, Florida, preparing a report on the great new American generation of elders, on the 14 million Americans who are over 65 years old, on their health, on their work, on their income, and how they play. And this is a good example of the new old age, the Kids and Cubs baseball game. Not a player on the field under 75 years of age. St. Petersburg has more people per capita who are over 65 years of age than any other city in the country. The beautiful climate, the mild weather might have something to do with it, but we think it's the fact that this city is far ahead of any other city in America in providing for the older generation. And that's why we are here, to ask these senior citizens to tell us about the problems of old age and to find out how our society must adapt to this great new age group, to the millions of healthy and active people who live 25 years after their 65th birthday. America's population has doubled since 1900. Those over 65 quadrupled. In a matter of years, their increased numbers will even off at 10% of our population. A mass generation of elders like this never existed before. And in a national sense, their problems challenge traditions of employment, housing, economy, and health. Mrs. Rittenhouse, it says here that you founded the team in 1930.
Right? But I've had my fingers in an awful lot of pies since then.
After a day or two in St. Petersburg, I'm beginning to lose my perspective about thinking that people who are 80 years old are old people.
Oh, well, I don't blame you because, you know, it's not how old you are, it's how you are old. Remember that. The minute you start resting, that's when you start rusting. And down here in St. Petersburg, we don't rust because the days aren't long enough for us to do the things we have to do.
Yes, but most old people don't live in St. Petersburg.
Well, but it doesn't make any difference where the old people live. There's one outstanding fault with all of them. They're lonesome. Believe it or not, they're lonesome. They want company. They want somebody to play games with, like dominoes or checkers or chess or, you know, cards. And there you are. But
do you think they like to be off all by themselves?
well, the young people won't play with them. So that's the trouble with them. Yes, I think they do.
Hello, girls. Looks like you got a pretty good ball team.
Thank you.
Could you take a minute with me now and talk about what you think about old folks?
Sure.
It's hard. I mean, having a grandmother in the house. Mine's always telling me what to do and what I should wear. It's like having two mothers all the time.
My grandfather's in a rest home. I don't think he likes it there. He never said he didn't, but I don't think he does. I bought him some Elvis Presley records. He likes them.
How about you, Ginger? What have you got to say?
It can't be fun to grow old. It means you're finished living. It means you're not worth as much to anybody anymore. Maybe you can't even get a job, and you're just waiting to die.
Well, thank you very much, ladies.
You're welcome.
Goodbye.
Bye.
About 30 feet, twice as many years, and a whole world of understanding away from this playground is the big St. Petersburg Shuffle Court. And the president of that club this year is a 77-year-old retired printer whose name is James Downs. And I think you'd like to meet him. Mr. Downs. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you.
Mr. Downs, I've just been over at visiting with your little neighbors at the high school, and some of those girls said some pretty sharp things.
Yeah. don't know about the modern age kids. They live in a world all their own. I don't understand them. I don't think their parents understand them.
Mr. Downson, we talked about the club the other day, and you took me through it. You said you had how many members?
About 6,000. We have a lot of younger people joining now, around 60, 61, 62.
62 or 82. The courts are crowded all day long. Players must wait their turn. But it's a pleasant wait. Mirror Lake adjoins the shuffleboard courts, and its walks and benches are shaded by palms and banyan trees.
This is one of the most beautiful and peaceful spots in the world. I came here with my husband 45 years ago from Faversham, Kent. There are in St. Petersburg many groups of people from all parts of the British Commonwealth of Nations. If it weren't for its palms, Mirror Lake would look just like an English pond. One of the most thrilling and exciting things happened here a few months ago. A resident of St. Petersburg journeyed to England last summer, and there permission was granted to the Earl of Verulam to ship 2 royal swans here to St. Petersburg. They are here now, and what a perfect lake is this to have them on. The people of St. Petersburg call them Elizabeth and Philip. I could watch them all day long and never care if I ever get to a shuffleboard court or not.
Most elderly people, like Mrs. Schilling, have learned patience. They can wait for their games to start. They line the courts and the benches behind the courts, and if they have no partner, the starter matches them. As a matter of fact, there's a saying around that more matches are started on the green benches of St. Petersburg than are started on the shuffleboard courts. At least half of the marriages in St. Petersburg are between people well over 50. And it's not so strange that this should be so. Some of the elderly people have only just enough to get along on. They get married and combine their incomes, and they do better. But more importantly, they know that sooner or later, one of them will have to take care of the other. And that's when a wife or a husband counts the most. St. Petersburg really goes all out for its older people. Next door to the Shuffleboard Club is the Roke Club, which adjoins the Lawn Bowling Club. At night, there's more than just dinner, television, and so to bed. Dances are very popular, and a man of 60 who has never danced before becomes a veritable Nijinsky in St. Petersburg. In Williams Park, the band concerts are followed by public forums on every subject from politics to parlor magic. The streets paved up to meet the curbstones at the corners so that old feet don't trip. And everywhere you go are benches, donated by the city or the stores or the hotels. The famous benches of St. Petersburg, all green by order of the city fathers. And the old people occupy them morning, noon, and evening. Here they sit and reminisce. They talk about what old people the world over talk about, their children, their grandchildren, their former jobs, and how it used to be in the old days. On the green benches of St. Petersburg in the soft, warm sunlight, they shuttle back and forth between today and yesterday. Mrs. Laura Berg is director of Sunshine University Arts and Crafts classes, run by the St. Petersburg Recreation Department in a surplus building that used to be part of a maritime base during the war.
We have over 70 hand looms of different types and sizes. Besides the classes in weaving, we teach pottery, all types of painting,
pine needle craft, woodworking, and jewelry making. Mrs. Benton is one of our best weavers.
When I came to Florida, my children had married and left home, and I was very lonely. I had a great deal of time on my hands, which I tried to fill with gardening, playing cards, the usual things, but it didn't fill my time. Then I found the weaving classes, and I enjoy weaving, and it fills my time with something useful.
Thank you, Mrs. Benton. St. Petersburg has given us a wonderful building here by the water's edge. Because the sun always seems to be shining here, our folks, many of them, prefer to work on the docks outside.
This is Florida basket weaving, made from the Florida needles from the Florida pine and woven with raffia. This basket took 2 full weeks to make and sells for $20. It is wonderful to have someone want to buy your work, but the real satisfaction is in knowing that you have made it yourself.
I guess I'm not much of a painter, but I can't wait to get up in the morning and get started. I have 3 children up north, and their homes are covered with my paintings. I think I'll start on my grandchildren now.
I'm Mr. Lyon. I teach lapidary. I like to come out here in the sun and select the stones which my students are to work with, because the sunlight brings out the beautiful colors in the stones, such as in this display. I have followed this hobby for several years, even before I retired from my railroad work. The students pay only a nominal fee for their lessons, about the value of a loaf of bread. And the instructors, why, they get a great kick out of it, just showing other people what they can do. Well, I would enjoy doing this work if I was never paid for it.
Some have money, some don't. That is the one dark cloud over Sunshine University and the aged everywhere. This tremendous new older generation isn't related to the traditional economics of work and child raising, and yet they must live. As they near 65, the traditional retirement age, the thought of not being able to work anymore grows into a fear.
Well, I'm 60 years old, and I feel like that work is good for a man. And I'm going to continue working just as long as I'm able. If I had $1 million, I would continue working. I feel like a man live longer, feel better, and more happier at work.
Some need more money than Social Security and retirement pensions afford. Others feel a combination of guilt and worthlessness on being laid off because of age. Too few employers have personnel policies like this manager of a lumber mill.
Well, I think they amount to this. The older employee appears to us to be a great deal more dependable. He's developed a sense of responsibility towards his home, his community, and his job. He's a leader. He knows his work. He doesn't require training, and he acts as a good example for the younger men.
But most employers say, go retire with your pension. Or if they don't give a pension, they rely on Social Security to fill in the lost earnings.
Social Security is a popular name for the federal old age and survivors insurance law. Social Security is compulsory national old age insurance. Employees put in 2.5% of their first $4,200 earned each year, and their employers match it. The self-employed put in 3.75% of their first $4,200. The premiums and monthly payments are raised to keep up with inflation. The benefits one gets at 65 depend on earnings over the years and whether one is really retired. Old folks were in a sad way before they had it. You can imagine what it must have been like not to have any money coming in. Now, with Social Security, they can manage somehow to get along. And if they are able to add union pensions or management retirement funds or their savings to that, they can get along very well indeed.
It's all on the cards. Maybe you work and maybe you don't. Maybe you have a pension. Maybe you qualify for Social Security, or maybe you don't. Or maybe it doesn't come to enough. There are a lot of maybes as you grow older.
All the little maybes were not for me.
My name, William Duncan. I am 90 in May. I have no regular job. I have no pension. I am not eligible either for service. My wife and I lost all our savings in the Depression. We came to St. Petersburg 17 years ago because of her health. And now she's gone, too. And for the last 5 years, I've been getting $51.50 a month from the County Welfare Department. Old age assistance, they call it. It is charity. Now, I don't complain that it's not enough, and I am grateful to have it coming in. But what with this inflation going on, all fixed incomes like Social Security or old age assistance seem to be 2 steps behind what things cost. The old folks have to get together and tell the government in Washington, and the state governments help us make ends meet. Sometimes I come down here and catch my supper. And it doesn't cost me a cent.
$1 here, $1 there. 10% of the population slowly finding a place in the national economy. But no matter how they count their dollars, by ones or by tens, one thing old folks have in common: a worry about their health, a worry about old bodies failing. Geared to its senior citizens, St. Petersburg presents public forums: dental, legal, financial, medical. All the specialists involved donate their time and knowledge.
Dr. Walden, what is meant by swollen ankles? Does it indicate heart trouble?
There are many causes for swollen ankles. It may be due to some abnormality in the venous circulation or the lymphatic circulation, or when it's associated with a rapid heart rate and shortness of breath, it may be due to congestive heart failure. However, most cases of swollen ankles have nothing to do with heart failure.
Dr. Walter, I've been told that the normal blood pressure is 100 plus your age, and I'm 80 years of age and my blood pressure is 120. Shouldn't it be 180?
No, it should not be 180. Although in many cases it tends to go up a little higher as we grow older, there is no consistent relationship between the age and the systolic blood pressure. Many patients age 80 have perfectly normal blood pressures of 100 or 110. Within certain broad limits, normal blood pressure is what is normal for you.
Dr. Sundin, is hardening of the arteries fatal?
Everyone in the older age group has some, though varying, degree of hardening of the arteries. It may occur in a part of the body and be completely asymptomatic, and I think the answer is no, it need not be fatal.
These are the medical problems of old age coming out into the open as the demand rises that chronic diseases of these added years be controlled, if not eliminated. And of course, for those who cannot afford private medical care, St. Petersburg's municipal hospital, as in other cities, maintains a free geriatrics clinic. Equally important to matters of health is the problem older people face in finding a place to live. Not only 4 walls that will give them physical comfort, but somewhere where family ties will not be severed or where there is a substitute affection and a sense of belonging. This is Orange Lake Village, just north of St. Petersburg, an example of the trend toward retirement housing, the older generation living by itself.
I came here because I didn't like the cold weather. As I grew older, it seemed to me that the snow and ice were very hard to take.
Mrs. Russell, how did you find Orange Lake Village?
Well, Mr. Rosati put up one of his model homes right outside of New York City and started advertising. It was very clever, the way Mr. Rosati advertised. He had all the figures broken down. What the monthly payments on the house would be, how much it would cost for heating, which isn't very much down here, and how much food would cost, and clothes, and a car. This is the kind of information that old folks want. They want to know how they stand financially. Usually what's coming to them is pretty well fixed, and they have to match what they have against what it's going to cost them to live. I figured the whole setup was all right for me, and the expenses add up to $160 a month.
Well, 160 is just about average, but do you find it cheaper to live here in Florida?
Well, Mr. Rosati didn't figure what food would cost to include a steak every day, but it is cheaper if you watch your budget.
Mrs. Russell, if you were back on Long Island, where would you be staying?
I don't know, Mr. Chancellor. Some of the old people up north are in old folks' homes or crammed in with their children. But I think that for old folks, living alone is the very least of a lot of evils.
Well, and the kind of retirement housing you described certainly looks like a trend, at least around here. Mrs. Russell, I must go. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Oh, Mr. Chancellor, if you're talking to Mr. Rosati about housing for old folks...
Yes, ma'am.
Ask him what he's going to do about all the widows.
I beg your pardon?
Women outlive men, you know. Ask Mr. Rosati what he's going to do about that.
Mrs. Russell wants to know what you're going to do about old ladies living longer than old men.
What would you want me to do about it?
I don't know, Mr. Rosati. I think if you could, you would. How many people have you living here in Orange Lake Village?
I have 500 people living here in Orange Lake Village, and I'm contemplating building 1,450 homes. And most of these people are pensioners, I'll say 90%, from different incomes. Social Security, other incomes, and pensions of other sources.
What do you call this, retirement housing?
Yes, sir. You see, in order to build these houses for this price, we have inexpensive land, and we build them a small house with easy maintenance.
How big is the lot?
The lot is 50 by 80.
Is that a plan of the house that you have in
Yes.
your pocket? Mr. Rosati, how big is the house?
37'6" by 20 foot.
Tell me a little bit about it.
We have a beautiful kitchen with a refrigerator, range, birch cabinets, and a sink. And right from the kitchen, you go right into a dining area.
Mm-hmm.
From your dining area, you go right into living room.
How big is that living room?
That living room is 13 by 14.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a master bedroom, which is 10'9" by 12.
Fairly big.
Fairly good. Good size. And you have an extra bedroom here in the
Now,
back.
right next to this extra bedroom, there's a little room there next to the bath. What's that?
That is a central heating plant.
One heating plant for the house? What, do you have vents around the house?
That's correct. We don't need much heat down here. Then you have a beautiful tile bath from top to bottom around the bathtub.
Pretty nice plan.
Yes, sir. This is what the old folks want. Fool around their gardens, down to the recreation center, and boat basing, and shuffleboard courts, and so forth.
I don't know why other builders haven't done what you've done.
There'll be other builders doing this all over the country.
How about recreation centers? I see them everywhere. Have you got one around here?
Yes, sir, we have.
Would
you like to go down and look at it?
I think I will. Mr. Rosati, thanks very much.
Thank you.
See you.
Every man must make the journey between youth and old age. And we have learned here in St. Petersburg that the end of that journey can be every bit as exciting and interesting as the beginning. Undoubtedly, there are elderly people here in St. Petersburg who are bored or lonely, but the great majority are not. In fact, I'd say they're very much alive and kicking. In the past few days, I've talked to literally hundreds of elderly people, and there's one thing they seem to hold in common. They like to know exactly where they stand. They feel very definitely that they must have a place in society, no matter how modest. They want to belong, and they want you to acknowledge that they belong.
Every part of our society, political as well as economic, is increasingly aware of the problem. The compulsory retirement age of 65 should continue to break down in the face of the medical realities about old age. Introduction of a 4-hour shift or a limited work week for senior employees may be just around the corner. Unions will continue to negotiate for increased pensions. Both labor and management will have to undertake extensive programs of preparation for retirement. In some ways, the problem of enjoying retirement is the same as that of enjoying increased leisure time. Many people in a work-centered society have difficulty valuing anything they are not paid to do. Public appreciation of arts, crafts, and hobbies for their own sake will help many older folk to believe that their pursuits in retirement are more than worthless time killers. The benefits of government welfare or old age insurance may, sooner or later, be geared to the cost of living, as are labor contracts. But the moment government provision for old age goes above basic minimums, it may have a negative effect on individual planning for old age. Medical science, creator of this mass old age, will tackle the major problems of geriatrics. Eventually, we may find life ending around age 100 by a sudden, painless breakdown of the body's metabolic processes. Retirement housing has already come to mean not only separate villages like Orange Lake, but a chain of hotels across the country specializing in accommodations and diets for old people. Retirement apartment projects in big cities feature non-slip floors and new safety devices for old people. And lastly, the popular American disdain of old age will probably change. Our mass literature and advertising glorifies youth and beauty. Youngsters growing up on a steady diet of movie star heroes and pin-up girl heroines can hardly believe that old age is anything but a horror, a useless time. It is ironical that St. Petersburg, haven of the aged, is most proud of its unusual municipal charm school, where the prettiest girls receive free training on how to pose.
I don't know how far removed St. Petersburg is from you, either in age or in miles. But as far as I personally am concerned, if what we have seen here in St. Petersburg is the shape of things to come, then I'm going to feel a lot happier when I think about the day when I become 65.
Hey, I'm Richard Hall with Nerds Make Media. You might notice I'm wearing my 19th century coat and shirt here. That's because here at Nerds Make Media, we love history. In fact, we love confounding history. What's confounding history? That's stories that don't often get told, people who aren't often highlighted, things that might surprise you about history. If you like that kind of thing, subscribe to our channel, tell your friends about it. Hey, and check out this video right here. Or maybe you want to check out this playlist right here, Vintage Movie Nights. Subscribe and tell your friends about it. Thank you.